Hey everybody, welcome to House of White Presents Squirrel and Friends. I'm here with my friend Sally. Hi Sally.
Hi.
And we are going to talk about ethics and morals in tarot reading today. This is a very sticky subject, but I think I've got one of the best people here to help me cover it for you.
Oh gosh.
Seriously, you are one of the best people, one of our authorities.
Okay, hit me with anything.
I'm ready now. All right. So the first topic I'd like to talk about is what are you comfortable with? Sometimes the client will come in and ask you a question that you don't want to touch with a
hmm
10-foot pole.
hmm
What questions would you steer away from and why?
That's a really great question. It's one of the things that I always encourage people to do when they're starting reading for other people is kind of ask those questions of yourself before you even get the first reading. What is your line? What won't you cross into? And there are certain categories I don't go anywhere near. I don't do medical questions. I don't do legal questions, although I'm qualified to do them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do financial questions. And I would say that should be the rule for everyone. Unless you have a license, don't touch those with a 10-foot pole. But again, there's other things that people aren't comfortable with. And you really have to come up with your own idea of what you can do a reading for. Because if you're fighting against your internal intuition, you're not going to be giving a good reading in the first place. You know what I mean?
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, what happens if you're doing a reading, say you're doing a general reading, and you
hmm
see something legal or medical or financial? And by financial, do you mean not telling them what to invest their money in or just financial period?
I it's always funny with the word financial because people ask me all the time, is this a good job move for me? And that's financial in nature. I mean, fundamentally, there's a financial aspect to that. And I don't say, yes, make an investment, no, make an investment. I don't talk about stocks. I'm not qualified to do anything like that. Financial planning, I'm not going to do that with tarot cards. That is simply not going to. But if somebody says, "Oh, I'm looking at buying this house. What do you think?" I will look at the house. I will look at the pluses and minuses. I will look at how they're going to feel about it and then let them decide what they want to do with that.
Very, very good. Yeah, we're not telling them what to do. We're giving them options. And I skipped right over my first question and shot a second question at you. I apologize for
Not a
that.
problem.
So if you got a general question, just tell me anything. And you saw some kind of medical issue in the cards, because we do see these things. How
hmm
would you address that? Would you ignore it? Would you tell them what you see, or would you encourage them to go to see a medical professional in a non-threatening way?
Right, right. I'm kind of leaning toward that. I generally steer clear of all medical questions unless I'm reading for myself, and then I do it all the time. Uh, full disclosure, but not for anyone else. But if I were doing a general reading and it pointed to medical, I might say, have you had something checked out? Have you been asking questions like this?
hmm
Just seeing if a medical issue is on the mind, and if it is, then point out that those are not the types of things I discuss in tarot readings. But if they have questions about it, go see a medical professional.
I like that. That is okay. I like that a lot. That way you're not alarming them and making them think, "Oh no, I'm going to die tomorrow." You're just letting them know that if they have questions about something or if something's been happening, they need to seek the proper advice.
Yeah, and that's not me. That's a medical professional.
And I find it very interesting because you are a lawyer
hmm
that so do you mean unsolicited legal advice or just period legal? You're not going to tell somebody how to go about their business with your tarot cards, even though you're probably the most qualified to do so.
If I had a legal question presented to me, there would be an attorney-client relationship, and it would likely be outside of tarot.
Mm-hmm.
If I had the type of client that was open to the idea of exploring a legal question with tarot, if there's an existing attorney-client relationship, I might go into it. Um, but I generally don't volunteer those things, and I would never volunteer anything like that without an attorney-client relationship being in place, in something in writing. If they
Right.
come to me and start talking to me, there is no attorney-client relationship here. No, not happening. Um,
So you know your boundaries.
yeah, and they're pretty firm.
You know your boundaries, you keep your boundaries. So if I come in, I say, I really want a legal reading. Are you allowed to say no to me?
Oh, absolutely. If I
Yes.
have boundaries, yeah, yeah, and stick to them. Because the moment you don't is when it bites you in the butt.
Now that's when you end up giving lectures or sermons.
Hmm.
Because if you have really strong feelings on something, not necessarily in the legal aspect, but if I came in, Paul, my husband,
Hmm. Right?
and you're friends with my husband,
Hmm.
and if I come to you saying I'm having an affair with so and so, you're gonna want to lecture me. You know what I mean?
I hear you. Yeah.
So in that case, I would put the cards down, and if I were you, and just full blast me in the face with how you feel about me cheating on Paul. Cards be damned, I'm gonna tell you what I think, woman.
Of course, I would probably say, okay, why? What's going on?
What's wrong with
No
you?
judging.
Did you fall? Nah, yeah, that's if it's something that you would bring judgment into or
Mhm.
bias, don't do the reading. Know that that is one of your boundaries, because there's nothing worse than getting a damn sermon that makes you feel like shit over something that you have a serious question about. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right, absolutely. And we get those types of questions. I mean, there are people who come to us and say, "Yes, I have a spouse and I have something on the side. What's going on here?"
And
And
if
it's not my place to sit there and tell them, "Well, you shouldn't have something on the side because blah 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 blah." Um, there, I can set that aside and just give advice because the person really needs it.
And the advice that you get from your intuition with the cards, not what's set in your
Right.
head.
Yeah,
Not,
absolutely
oh
not.
no, this is wrong, and you're gonna.
Yeah,
We don't know what they're going through
exactly.
until we set those cards down or until they talk to us. So we can't go around judging people.
Right.
That is so important, and that will happen less if you know what your boundaries are and you know what particular types of situations that you just don't want to read for.
Yeah, and it's not just the situation, it's often the situation. But sometimes you're just not in a good headspace. Like, if my brain is just not where it needs to be to do a reading, it's my job to say, I don't think now is a good time for the reading and reschedule it.
Yeah.
If the client and I aren't clicking for whatever reason, the client should be free to say, this isn't working for me and walk away. Or I should be free to, say, this isn't working and walk away. We're not indentured to one another.
Yeah.
And we want the best possible energy going between us so we have a decent reading. I don't want to make it sound all frou-frou or anything, but there really is. There's an energy, there's an empathy that's going between people at the same time you're giving the reading. And if it's hostile, it's not a good place for anybody to be in.
Or they're trying to make you jump through hoops,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no reason any of us should have to jump through hoops. We're
Mm-hmm.
good at what we do. We do not have to pretend that we're Madame Zolragopharak or whatever, if you come to us for a reading, expect intelligence. I really like that. You're doing a great job here. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. This is wonderful.
Now, one of the questions that I get a lot is we in the school, we learn to read for third party. Like, say, I
Mm-hmm.
come to you and I want to know what Paul's doing or what Marty's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives us information on how best to understand the other person, how best to deal with the person.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of people who say that that's morally objectionable, that we are
Mm-hmm.
not allowed to read for somebody who is not present. How do you feel about that?
Oh, I read for third parties all the time and always have. I know you haven't because you've started out having a different line there. And I think if that's your line, okay. I think it's an unnecessary line. I think when we are doing readings for other people, we're always taking in third party information.
Mm-hmm.
We may be gearing it toward the person sitting in front of us, but we're still looking at outside influences, and those outside influences are third parties. So I think people who say, I don't read third parties, and then will give you a reading about your relationship with your boyfriend are being a little disingenuous.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And yeah, for 30 years, I really believed that I was not that I needed the person's permission to read for them.
Mm-hmm.
30 years I refused to do third party readings. And then when I took the course, I did have a good amount of time that I had to struggle with being able to read third
Mm-hmm.
party for somebody who was not present. But now it's like breathing. It's like this makes sense. If it's helping the client, if it's actually giving the client insight to work on things, I would never do a reading that just openly hostile or
Mm-hmm.
looking for dirt or anything
Right.
like that. No, no. But if my client genuinely wants to help the person that they're asking about or connect with the person that they're asking about,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. As long as there's not selfish intent or we're all selfish. Let me rephrase that. As long as there's not harmful intent.
Right. Right.
However, if you do feel that you just don't want to do it, rule number one is if it works for you, it's right for you. And
Exactly.
and if I think it's right or Sally thinks it's right and you just can't feel comfortable with it, do not do that to yourself.
Right. And that's the first thing we talked about. When does it cross your line? And if it crosses your line, it crosses your line. And no one can force you to do a third party reading if you don't believe you should be doing third party readings.
That's right.
It's
Stick
it's
to
just
your
as simple as that.
guns.
Yeah,
Stick to your
refer to one of
guns.
us who will.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful point. Beautiful point. Referrals. If Sally talked earlier about questions that you don't want to answer or even just that negative energy where the client doesn't click with you because that really does happen. It is
Hmm.
so hard to give a reading when the person across from you is just you just want to punch them in the face. I'm sorry, it happens. I am not always a violent person, but you say, I don't even want to look at you. It's like, if you've got that going on and you know another tarot reader that would have no problem with this person, give them a referral. Don't just say, no, I'm not reading for you and send them away. Say, I know somebody that would really click with you and understand you a little better.
Yeah, and if you don't know anybody, start going out there and meeting other tarot readers and finding out what they do and do not read for. Because it's always good. I mean, you'll keep a client if the client comes to you and says, "Hey, I want to do a reading on this and you've done such good work for me in the past. I don't do that, but this person can." And we get those kinds of readings. I've gotten referrals from other people and they're fantastic readers. They either just don't have the time or it's not their area of expertise.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like you do business readings. You
Mhm.
are very well schooled in business and business relations and all of that
Mhm.
good stuff.
Mhm.
And technically, I could do a business reading because I'm reading the cards and I'm listening to the universe. But you are better qualified because you actually understand the inner workings. So if I got somebody who said, I want to start a new business and I want to know blah, 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 I'm going to say, I got just the person to do a reading for you.
And, the same thing goes with those other things that I won't touch. Financial readings, there are people who will do financial readings with
Hmm.
tarot. They are qualified to do it. Refer to them. That's just good practice all the way around.
I agree. I agree. And it supports the other tarot readers and they're going to support you as well.
Hmm.
Don't look at it as a competition. As, oh
Right.
no, there's another tarot reader in my hand. Look at it as a partnership
Hmm. Hmm.
because there are going to be certain things that you are better at,
Hmm.
and there are going to be certain things that the other tarot reader excels at, and working together, it just brings in more clients.
Right. Somebody comes at me with a dowsing reading, it's going to you.
Oh God, I hate dowsing,
But you're so
but
good
I
at it.
seem to get stuck doing it all the time. It's like,
Oh, we love you, baby.
it's like I'd rather just walk in the room and say, "Where would I be if I were this object?"
Yeah.
And then I can find it. It takes me a little while with the cards. We
Hmm.
get it, but it's very frustrating.
Hmm.
A lot of readers, how do I put this, are completely oblivious to the real world. I probably just pissed a lot of people off. You can't say anything negative. You're not allowed to. Oh, that's not how life works. So what
No, it's
happens if
not.
you see something in the cards, which I know it has happened to you?
Hmm.
If you get a hit and it's something really difficult to say, and I'm not talking about you, if you see, oh, your Uncle Joe's gonna die, don't bother telling people if
Hmm.
they're gonna die or not because you're
Hmm.
robbing them of a
Right.
lot, and you're also planting shit in their heads that they might make happen. Don't
Right.
go there. But if you see that they're going through a really rough time, if you
Hmm.
see that things just aren't going the way they want, a lot of readers will put the rose colored glasses on and turn it into something it's not. Sometimes life is shit.
Hmm.
And they don't want to recognize that. How do you feel about that?
Well, I feel like you're doing a client a disservice if you're not warning them if a truck's barreling down on them, metaphorically speaking, of course.
Yeah.
Um, you can deliver bad news to people if you're compassionate,
Mm-hmm.
if you're helpful, if you're trying to guide them away from a difficult situation. All you're already building this empathy chain with someone when you're doing a reading, and you have this person here who genuinely wants help from you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you see something negative coming at them, explain to them. I do it in the most gentle way possible. I don't, just lay it out there and walk away because to me that feels reckless.
Yes.
But if I can sort of discuss the negativity and then look in the spread where, we can change that because there's nothing about these readings that's written in stone. So, there are ways of dealing with potentially negative things coming at you. And if you see them, and if we look at the spread and figure out the ways to tweak that, you can avoid those situations. So if I don't say anything, I have doomed my client to get possibly hit by this truck
You've
of
robbed them
emotion.
of the choice to get out of the
Yeah,
daggone road.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I will tell them as gently as I can because they're living, breathing human beings, and I would want somebody to treat me that way. So I guess that's what I do. I just treat them like I'd want to be treated.
Beautiful. Okay, that's going to be like one of our rule number twos. Let's treat them like you want to be treated. And honestly, if you see something like that coming in the future, you don't just say, "Oh, you're going to get hit by a truck." You find ways, you really do find ways in the reading to avoid the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But say we've got somebody who's going through severe depression. Yeah, there are
Mm-hmm.
very many cards that can indicate that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
you're sitting across. Okay, say I come to you and I'm sitting across from you, and you
Mm-hmm.
see that I have this severe depression, and oh, everything's gonna be okay, honey.
No.
No, a lot of times when we say, oh my God, you're feeling this, or you went through this, or we need to
Mm-hmm.
address this emotion or this negativity, the relief that goes through that client's face of being allowed to say, I hate my life.
Yes.
And being able to discuss it, and then being able to help them find ways to like
Yes.
themselves or get out of the situation is it's priceless.
Yes.
It's so much more worth its weight in gold than everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because they didn't come to you because everything's okay. If
Right.
everything was okay, then they would be out doing something else. They came to us because they have things they want to address. So
Yep.
we have to address them.
Absolutely. So this brings me to another point.
Sorry for getting too heavy, guys.
And this is a little bit of a heavy discussion because this is stuff you got to know. This is really stuff that you're going to see out there in the real world when you're doing readings. One of my bones of contention is there are a lot of tarot forums out there for tarot readers. And one
Hmm.
of the biggest thing that you'll see is, and nowadays, tarot readers aren't supposed to give advice. Uh,
That's pretty much what we do.
tarot readers are not supposed to give advice or help or any of that. Why bother?
Right?
I was telling Sally, I really think that's New Age window dressing that absolves the reader of all responsibility in the reading. That gives them license to just spout bullshit.
No, that's why they want to know how to make things happen, how to get things done. If they just wanted to come in and see, what was written in stone, then yeah, we wouldn't be giving advice, but it's not written in stone. That's the whole point. You are coming to us to change what's coming in the future, to help guide what's coming in the future. And while I'm not going to tell you, you must do this or you must do that, I
Right.
will tell you if I think something may be helpful.
Yeah, this is coming. Now you know it's coming. So you have
Mhm.
the option to make the changes, the choices that can change that
Mhm.
or make it happen. Because sometimes we got some good news. Seriously.
Oh, yeah, a lot of times. And then we get to do, a how-to question. How do you get something done? Those are great questions to do, and they're chock full of advice.
Oh, yeah. So many times someone will say, what do I need to do? And then you tell them what they need to do, and they're looking at you like, okay. You know what? That leads to, okay, now I just gave you the great advice that's so easy to say and so hard to do, especially if you don't know how. Now we
Right,
do the roundabout. Let's see how you can do this.
right, right,
So,
exactly.
yeah. Yeah, and I'm not saying milk a reading and oh, now I can tell you for 200 more. Don't ever do that.
No,
I will
that's
personally
ridiculous.
walk to your house and smack you upside your head. I'm so
And I'll
violent
be
today.
standing behind you.
Yep, with the baseball bat. Don't ever do that. Don't
Yeah,
ever do that. If they have time left on that reading, make it part of that reading. If
absolutely.
they don't, give them the option to do that and help them any way you can. Even, make it even a half price reading if you have to because they weren't
Hmm.
coming prepared for that. But don't ever milk. That's uh, ugh.
See, that's why I personally, one of my, I have a code of ethics. It's plastered all over everything I do. Um, and one of those is I don't charge by the minute because I take a question, I take a client and their question, and I give that client and the question as long as I need to give it to answer their question. If I feel like any of us are under the gun as far as time goes, then either they're worried they're going to be spending too much. It may give me incentive to, charge by the hour, which is just, I don't want to go down that road. I just want to give the client good service and take whatever time that time takes.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I do. I charge by the reading.
Mm.
And there have been times where my readings have gone over 2 hours,
Oh, yeah.
but that's client interaction. And another thing I want to add, this wasn't on our bullet points, but
When is it ever?
anybody surprised I do 2 hour
No.
readings here? But one of the things that Will had said to me, another student, is that he's gone to tarot readers that try to impress and don't tell me anything, to the point where he even felt like he wasn't even in the equation of the reading,
Hmm.
that he
Hmm.
was an outsider. And there are often times where your client, this is the only opportunity that they really have the chance to say what they feel and what they're
Hmm.
going through, because they either don't want to bother the people they're closest to or worry them, or they don't feel that they can. And
Right.
you really do develop a bond of trust with a client. Those clients are going to tell you things that they would not dream of telling anybody else. You've got to give them the opportunity to do so.
And that's, that comes to my ethics rule number, whatever we're on. Whatever clients tell me stays with me.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
something the client has to know, that their story isn't going to get out from you, because if they feel like you're not a safe place to be, they're not going to tell you what they need to tell you in order to get to the root of their problem.
That's so true. They have got to be able to trust you. So if
Hmm.
you're reading for your best friend just for fun, and something is in there that your best friend doesn't want people to know, don't go telling everybody. That's just
Exactly.
rude. Whether it's a client, a paying client, a friend, your cat. Yeah, you don't share that information. Now, sometimes we share information that we do in readings in group with each other, but we get that permission first.
Absolutely.
Always get permission. If you do have an amazing reading that you want to share with your group, or the people you're learning with, get that client's permission. If they say they're not comfortable with it, don't do it. So wow, we could go on a while. There are
We
so
probably
many
could. Yeah.
things.
Yeah, there are.
But I think the main things, the main points are, and you said it beautifully, treat your clients, anyone you're reading for, like you want to be treated.
Hmm.
That that I think is one of the most important things we discussed today. Remember that you have the ability and the right to say no,
Hmm.
and know beforehand what your boundaries are.
Hmm.
And really, really do suggest, you saw how strongly I felt about certain things. But I am not you.
Hmm.
So you may do things differently than I do. But
Right.
please, please, tr- try to make sure everything you do adds to the tarot reputation instead of detracts from it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there's enough out there right now that'll do that for you. You don't need to add to it.
Right, right. So everything you do that's just, rude, like milking a reading, or
Yeah.
milking that detracts from your reputation and every other tarot reader as well.
Right.
Just remember, we're all different. We're all going to have our own distinct boundaries.
Hmm.
Don't let anybody change your boundaries. Stick to them
Yeah.
and know what they are, and allow yourself to say no.
Perfectly summed up.
All right. Do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, unless you want to add another hour onto our discussion. That's for another day.
We could. It's like every point we discuss. Oh, and another thing.
Right, right.
And if you have any questions about what you are or aren't allowed to do, first ask yourself. If you're still wondering, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. Ask your questions, share your stories. We are extremely interested to hear what you have to say, and we will get back to you.
Absolutely.
Sally, I want to thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening, everybody, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.